Good morning, everybody. It's a nice lull in the conversation, so I think we're ready to go. My name is Sarah Sherman, and like all of you here, I'm a customer of ULCC. I work for a number of different institutions in London, and we're all using the Moodle service. Can I have a quick show of hands for those of you for this is your first meeting? Just the one. So all of you are well-established ULCC Moodle user groupers. Brilliant. Okay. I want to also welcome those of you who are tuning in online as well. I think we've got a few delegates. So any questions you have throughout the session, type them in the chat and Frank will be looking after you. Excellent. Okay. So we should have EduRoam here. And if you haven't got access to EduRoam, Wi-Fi, then there's ULCC, University of London Conference Wi-Fi for you to connect to. This is the agenda for today. So as is always we have at these meetings, we're going to have an update from ULCC on a number of different areas that they've been working on. So hopefully you've all got the agenda in front of you that's been posted online. But Dave will be talking about things like COSector updates, Moodle 3 reporting, the coursework development, and all sorts of lovely Christmas treats for us. 11:15, we're going to hand over to Dave, who's joined us from Rose Bruford, who's going to provide a customer showcase. I don't know any more than that, but hopefully Dave will. And then for about half an hour or so, it's going to be an open forum. So we've suggested 3 topics that we think customers would like to talk about, being the future of the Moodle user group, which is this, the coursework development, demonstration, and out-of-hours support. So there'll be 3 topics that we can discuss, but other things besides. So really use that as an opportunity to vent and question and ask all the colleagues from ULCC who are here today. Can I ask those ULCCers to stand up so we can see where you are? So they're amongst us, they're dotted around. So and at various points, pardon? There'll be more later, so they'll be coming in. It won't be like a scene out of Reservoir Dogs, hopefully. And then at 12:30, for an hour and a half, we'll have lunch and there'll be networking opportunities. Hopefully the people joining us remotely will be able to have a sandwich and maybe chat amongst themselves if they don't want to go and do something else. So we've got quite a long lunch break, but that's another opportunity to talk to all the ULCC staff members and ourselves as well. So I don't think I have anything further to say about today's meeting. Frank, you've got some housekeeping.
Housekeeping, yeah, the usual. So there's no fire alarms planned today. So if you hear the alarm, just follow me because I'm gonna run out the building. Lunch will be served where we had coffee and tea, and gents and ladies are through double doors by the lift and through another set of double doors because we have loads of those double doors in this building. But that's where you find the restrooms.
And hopefully they're fire doors, so if there is the fire, we'll be okay.
Yes, yeah,
all right.
We should be.
That's good. So as I always say at these meetings, make the most of this time that we've got. This is the point of the group, and enjoy the morning.
Morning. I'm afraid you've got me to do all of the updates. Richard Hamming's having a well-earned break. Emily's losing her voice, so I'll do what I can. So where should we start? So I thought I'd share some stats with you. We've been improving various things about our management of records, about customers, contracts, etc. And I thought actually sometimes you guys don't get a sense of where you fit in the bigger picture of our service. So I thought I'd share some things, really for information only. So we reckon we have 120 customers at the moment. 3 types of splits. So the left one shows the progress that Toby and others have been doing, converting to the Bloom and Bonsai services that we introduced here 18 months, maybe even 2 years ago. So the vast majority of our customers converted. Those that haven't are mainly those in long-term ODU or tender type contracts for multiple years. So those hopefully eventually will be converted also. But it shows the Bloom Bonsai split, a few with just Mahara. Then we've got in the middle So we have internal customers. So we have, although we're not a university in the traditional sense right here in this building, we do have students. We have the School of Advanced Study with postgraduate students who use our Moodle services. We have the University of London international programs with tens of thousands of distance learners. So that blue internal section is our services to those customers. Then we have the Federal University of London, provide services to those as well. And the rest is everything else. So FE, schools, NHS, all kinds of other customers. And then a split by sector, which actually surprised me a bit. I think I've quoted figures in the past that are somewhat different to that, but so the split, we now actually have a majority of our customers in terms of numbers is actually HE. Then this is a split by the revenue that we receive for these services. So on the left, we've got the big purple one is HE, which I guess doesn't come as too much of a surprise. In the middle is the internal, federal, and external split. And then the last one is development, is projects that we do with you, one-off pieces of work. But that actually accounts for a relatively small portion of our income. Most of it is the annual service charges. So total service subscriptions, obviously our service is no longer just each of you has a Moodle service. You have, or a lot of you have multiple services, development environments, report, all sorts of other bits and pieces. So we reckon 198 separate services that we're running for you as a whole. Of those, 22% of our customers have a Support Plus service, so going beyond the amount of support that you would get as standard, people requiring more. About a third of our customers going for the tailored option. So this is the ability to take advantage of Moodle's open source nature and the amount of stuff that's out there, the ability to develop things yourselves, get us to develop it, get somebody else to develop it. So that's actually established itself as something that we expected a portion of our customers to need and want that, and we're keen to encourage that. And then Mahara. So Mahara is an e-portfolio tool that integrates quite well with Moodle. Getting on for a quarter of our customers have that, either just that or have that alongside a Moodle service from us. The number of users figure is something we quote quite regularly, so that probably doesn't come as too much of a surprise, but 3.2 million users across all of our systems. There's the usual caveats about you and I know just as much how many of those users are likely to be old or irrelevant, but that's the number of users that potentially we could be faced with using our systems. And then availability. Our monitoring and measuring of this has got much better over recent years. And so for the last year, that was our average uptime across all of our services. So, oh, by the way, I'm happy to be interrupted either at the point or at the end, as you wish. COSector, Sarah referred to. So COSector it's had many names, but what it is at heart is a bringing together of all of the parts of this central university that offer services to the outside world, bringing them together to share expertise and more sensibly organise themselves to make the most of that. So this includes Ulcc, Careers Group, who many you probably know, aware of, and our housing services team. It's been talked about for a long time under names like University of London Shared Services, ProSum, probably some other names. Gamma was another one. Several names, but COSector is the name it's currently going under. We do now have a leadership team in place, so it's no longer just an idea. It's an actual thing. We have a new leadership team, so commercial directors, marketing directors, chief operating officers, all kinds of roles that are going to bring that organisation together and hopefully improve what we do. I don't know how much of this kind of reaches out to you, and similarly, I don't know how much it's of interest to you, but things like COSector are kind of names that you might come across in the months or years going forward. So you at least ought to understand what it means. We have had changes of the leadership at the very top of that group. Maybe 3 months ago, the chief executive changed. The direction is now much more integrated with the University of London. It was heading in a direction where we'd be more of a separate entity. I think we're now all quite happy and relieved that we're working much more closely with the existing university. The reason why I said COSector may not reach you, we haven't yet determined what branding looks like. ULCC at the moment is still a recognisable entity for us. Whether that remains the case or whether COSector or some other branding works, not sure. So watch this space. Probably the most relevant two parts of this is, firstly, the management team have obviously come in, they've been looking at everything we do. There's a very much appetite for investing in the Moodle business and operation. So I and others are working with that team to prepare a strong case for investing in new roles, new R&D into the product, all the kinds of things that we know and you know we need to build it into a long-term success. So we are hopefully going to be recruiting for key roles in the new year. So if anyone is kind of interested in something like that, do talk to us. And we do expect to be doing more self-driven R&D based on your inputs, but building of features into the product and the services that you guys need and want. And the other bit is the management team have looked at projects that we do across not just ULCC or Moodle, but across the board. And there's a lot that need a bit more rigor and a bit more to be more carefully thought through. So some big key projects have been stopped because they've not been enough confidence that they're going to deliver what they said both practically and financially. So I think we should all expect to see a bit more rigor around the projects that we might do with you, because there is attention on some much bigger scale projects that have caused problems elsewhere. So don't be too surprised if you find us paying a bit more attention to project management and scoping requirements, all of those kind of things as part of the project, but hopefully for the better for us and you. FE market research and understanding. So this is something I think we talked about at the last user group. We recognise concerns about how we can be providing the service that works for our FE customers. We commissioned Julian Bream, who used to work for the RSC, to undertake some research on our behalf. So he has been talking to a number of, probably many of you here and others, about what we provide, what FE needs or would like us to provide, the practicalities about how that might work practically, financially, and so on. So as far as we've got, he's had interviews with between 15 and 20 colleges, many current customers, but some ex-customers who've left us and gone to do it themselves or gone elsewhere, so that we can understand, what was behind that. We plan to do a follow-up survey to a much wider audience to pick up on key themes that research has picked out to explore further, so we can actually make some concrete plans about what we do. But I've picked out from his early draft reports to us on where he's got to things that I found interesting, and I want to present something to you so that you can, nod in agreement or say, no, actually that's not representative of us, and feedback to us now or later. So here's a few. A common theme was that the reason people come to us is that we've been doing this for a long time. We know how to make Moodle work, and that's what they value in the service from us. but the cost does drive even fairly happy, satisfied customers. The driving down of cost pressure does drive people away from us. Lack of reporting as well. So, we talked about this many times, and I'll do a further update on that. But I think we understand that FE need reporting very much to justify why there's a VLE, why there's a team of people to support it and run it, to justify that spend. So we recognise that as an issue as well. Some comments on those who've moved to Moodle rooms. They actually like it, but they have fears about the cost that they can't immediately see, or what the cost will be like going forward. Something about us exploring a relationship with Compass CC, who create the Pro Monitor tool, and that at the moment we haven't had much to do with them at all. And I'm interested to see whether that's, is that a one-off view, or is that actually something that we genuinely should explore further? And that we should be a more active player in the Moodle community. It's something we've identified from our own strategy work. Again, maybe we need to explore what exactly does that mean. There's lots of different ways of being active in that community. What would make most sense? But then I wanted to pose a question to you, and I certainly don't expect an immediate answer, but something to think about, which is, if we had the reporting, which for me is the number one thing that comes out of the feedback, if we had the reporting that you dreamt of, and we offered the service at the price point that your cost pressures need it to be delivered at, what, if anything, would an FE college sacrifice to enable us to achieve that? Because it's a fairly tall order for us to deliver both of those competing demands. So we need a bit of help to know, are we including things in the service that actually not important enough, but they drive the cost upwards for us, and that without them actually we could achieve that. So not an easy question to answer, but quite happy to talk to anybody in more depth if that prompts any thoughts. So I think we're getting to the point where we're understanding better what the need and demand is. I wouldn't say we've worked out what the solution is. I think we want to move into that phase, which is, okay, how do we achieve that? Can we achieve that? Some more practical stuff about operational support. Oh, yeah.
Before we leave that thing, can I ask you, when you said the proportion of customers have changed, is that mainly because you've lost it?
No, I think it's because we've now got much better tracking and recording of who our customers are and the details about them. So actually, I think it's more, before it was based on gut impression of, we think we've got low. I mean, it wasn't quite as lame stats as that, but I think, no, I don't think it's dramatically changed. I think over the last few years, there's certainly been a number of FEs who've moved away to other providers or doing it themselves. And HE, keeps growing. We keep adding more HE customers. So the balance is certainly shifted over the last 3, 4, 5 years, I guess. But I think those stats probably came as a bit of a surprise to us that actually, whatever it was, 30-something% is FE. I think we would have all, if you'd asked us to guess, we would have said it was higher than that. Okay. So operational stuff, as I say, the stats is an example of we've updated our ServiceNow platform so that we can actually record in there the customers and precisely what services they have with us, which is something we haven't actually been able to do to date, and that's hugely valuable because we can then start to build on that. We can record detailed, accurate support time records by ticket. We can have the team update your customer information, so your contact points and so on. They can update that during the call with you. There's no more cumbersome process for that to happen. And we have a better view of what services are we providing. We can see if the rate of that service is growing or shrinking, we can start to see it and react to it. The support time has been the main focus of this. We built that into the Bloom and the bonsai concept as a fundamental underpinning of it. It's taken us much longer than I would have liked to get that detailed ticket by ticket tracking, but we've got that. What we now need to do is find the best way so that you guys can see that when you need to see it and how you need to see it. So we will now have the detailed records across the board, and you can ask for them, and Emily and co will give those to you at the regular review points. But we're considering things like adding it to the portal, adding it to the emails you get when a ticket's closed, maybe to say that ticket used this amount of time, your balance is now this. But again, feedback on what's the most useful way for you to see that, because it's no good us just having the records and you having no idea where you're at. Yes.
I'm just wondering, staying with support, is it worth asking customers here how they're finding responses to support? I don't have to raise many tickets myself, but when I do, they're answered pretty quickly. I'm very pleased with that service, but I'm just wondering if that's worth throwing open and receiving feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any feedback? Any feedback at all is welcome.
This is now, I think, just to check if Dave does it, a good opportunity for you to come back to be able to see if that service is better for the support. I don't have to raise anything in the job that I do, but when I do, I get fast responses and I then please. But that was a concern that I used to hear a lot about 4 years ago. So now is your chance, customers, co-customers, sales customers, to feedback. So anyone generally got any concerns, questions, or praise?
Path is.
No, I've got lots of people. I must drive them mad. But yeah, the response I get is really quick. So.
Yeah, and we want to start recording. Well, actually, the platform's always had the ability to record, the length of time it takes a ticket to be closed and compare that against an SLA. This work to embed the contracts and the services in that platform, now that's taken place, we can actually really start to unleash that. So we can actually start to monitor whether, what percentage of your particular tickets are we closing in the time that we're supposed to, and we can start to then, if that's not where it should be, we can start to work out why and resolve that. So I do expect us to see that starting to build up over the coming months. Yeah. Yeah. No, and nor do we. That's not a practical, efficient way for us to deliver that information easier. Right.
I just wanted to speak to someone.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the focus of our, in looking at resolutions times and response times and so on, the focus is obviously when something has broken is about how quickly we get it back up and running. I think it's probably fair to say we're making less commitment on the, we'd like to discuss how we might do such and such. It's something we do want to offer that advice and consultancy, but at the moment there isn't the same pressure to deliver that, within an hour, within 4 hours, or whatever it might be for a site's broken kind of request. Yeah, absolutely.
We're all working with the same tool. Absolutely. There's a lot of expertise in the so we've got our local community of customers, so there's the UK resource, HG, there's various different resources as well. Any other points, Linda? Just one final one. When you go to search now, you've got links and markets.
Yes.
If you want to make a request, you cannot attach an attachment to instance not to
Oh,
request.
right. Okay.
So if I make a request that needs a file attachment, I'm going to raise this instance. You guys will move it to request later, so I go and find my instance, so I'll move something on it, so
Right.
every time.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that, but okay.
That's a very good point. Are there any other little things like that in the system?
When there's instance requests, if you're looking for the previous history and searching for something, you have to search instance and then search requests. If you have a single
Right.
search, actually just search.
Okay. I mean, this is useful because we have just finished a phase of work with an update to the platform for the support time. So we are now, we've got a list. It's quite long of things we would like to do, but we're at the point where actually we could decide what's the next priority. So, yeah, we could look at something like that. Yeah.
Any other points? Okay, but use the networking time and the focus groups later on.
Does everyone automatically have access to the mailing list? You do?
Yeah. If you've got colleagues who don't keep on the mailing list,
Yeah. Okay. But some practical details on coming upgrades. We are reserving the long list of details for a future user group if the timing works, or a webinar. Moodle 3 is the next target, which I got a bit scared about because I'd heard the tales of Moodle 2, but I'm reliably informed it's more like Moodle 2.10, and it's not that, nothing to be too scared about. We have just started work on preparing our updates and build. There's quite a lot of work that goes into doing that. And the target date for starting rollouts of that to customers is 1st of April. So, I mean, obviously, if you've got questions, send them into the service desk, ask them to the team here, but there will be more practical details to come. We are committing that it will include our reporting plugin that we have talked about for, yeah, Jane's laughing, a long time, but it is going into that release. So, and on that note, I'm going to give you a brief update on where we've got to. With the first admission that progress has been made, but it to our frustration has not been as quick as we would like, for a whole host of reasons, including many of the things I've talked about there, adapting to the COSector world, working on other developments that you'll hear about later, and so on. So the COSector focus on investing in R&D is the thing we need to be able to increase the progress of things like this, because we're not actually talking about a huge piece of development here, but at the moment we don't have that R&D investment or resource to drive that on a full-time basis. As I say, it is going to be in the April Moodle 3 release. The focus has been on UI, making it pleasant and attractive and easier to use. We've got at least one new report, some improvements to others. And I was just going to show you a few quick snapshots of where we've got to, but it is still a work in progress. So there's a more pleasant menu when you first reach reports. Descriptions of what the reports do before you access them. Graphical work is still still in progress with them. Some of this will look, similar style to some of the stats.moodle stuff that some of you may remember from the past. But again, feedback on whether we're getting the content of that right and whether the focus on UI is actually the right one. So as much feedback as possible, but we do accept it's a kind of, it's always coming, but we're not just aiming for it to be an April release, it's going to be in there.
I've got a question.
Yeah, yeah.
Move round, so I've got my back to you. My question today is, I was part of a working group on reporting with Mike and Fiona Binder, I think were there, and there was a few people. And you're inviting us to feedback, but how do we do that? Like, how do we see this? How can we test things out? Have you got any beta testers?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I think in comparison to the coursework development, which I'll cover next, where we do have a steering group and beta testing done, it's probably fair to say we don't have an equivalent for this. So I think if people are willing to look at something that's a work in progress, I think it's definitely something we consider, because I mean we do want the feedback.
Because we had that group, and we sat around and said,
Right.
Richard, a year ago.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of workshops and requirement gathering, but we didn't really get any output from that.
Right.
And these are the kind of requirements that you've given us.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think at the moment we'd be quite interested in having people willing to beta test it, see whether is this reporting looking like it's doing anything useful for us. If it isn't, then we need to revisit some of those workshops and work out where we go. But I mean, I think we're reasonably comfortable based on those groups. We're going in the right direction, but it's fair to say we haven't sort of closed that loop. Back to you guys. Yeah, so we don't want to force a half-finished version on people, but if people are willing to try it out, because it's fairly low impact. If it's on there and you don't use it, it's not the end of the world. So do come talk to me or Toby or any of the development team at the back of the room if you are interested.
Are there any other questions from you guys about report development, also moving through the slides? I want to finish and we have the opportunity to talk and ask.
No, I don't think so. I think originally when we started on this, frustratingly long time ago, I think that the demand was actually coming from HE, and I think it was wanting reporting on, okay, we've introduced this VLE, are our staff actually making use of it in a big way or in a good way? So it was coming from there. I think it probably has evolved that FE, other people say we really need certain types of reporting. So I mean, in part, yes, but no, I think we see it as something that I'd be amazed if it wasn't of interest or use to HE. Right. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So maybe that group didn't, reflect that shift that's happened. So FE or HE or other that are interested in seeing it, offering feedback, I think we'd be open to it from anyone.
Any more squirmy questions like that? That was a big one.
Okay. Coursework is the other thing that we've been doing quite a lot of work on. Again, this has had various names in its history, OCM, and there was something else I think before it became Coursework. But Coursework seems to be the name we've stuck on. I'm not an expert on exactly what it does, but it's going beyond Moodle's core assignment tools and adding, those were four of the main features that we felt it was adding. I've got a few very quick screenshots and a bit of practical information about when and how can we get it. But in the corner over there, when we open up to the breaks and lunch and so on, the development team who've been working on it have got presentation screencasts of some of the functionality in action, and you can go and talk to them about how it works in detail and what's behind it and so on. So if you're interested, please do go and take the time, because I'm not going to cover it at massive length here. They're quite hard things to take screenshots of, a lot of this stuff, because it's lots of tables and screens, but I just thought I'd show some of the settings that you can switch this stuff on, configure it. It is real. Sampling, automatic agreement of grades, custom extensions, and so on. Like I say, do go. They've done quite a lot of work on enabling you to see and get a feel for how this stuff works. Yeah, I think those slides are in the wrong order. We've reached the stage of getting to a release candidate. Beta testing is underway with a group that have helped us define the requirements for it. Our aim is to release it, assuming that testing goes to plan, release it to customers who want it, who have the tailored extension to their service from about the end of January. And then with our April release, the aim would be that we make it more widely available to everybody. But there are some challenges we've faced. So it's an extension to the assignment tool. It's obviously desirable that it works with the various plagiarism tools, particularly Turnitin to integrate with that. You can use it without, but we understand that that's probably not very attractive to most of you here. It's designed to use the Turnitin version 2 plus the plagiarism plugin. Turnitin have rewritten that plagiarism plugin, which has essentially caused us a problem because in such a way we weren't expecting. So we're having to adapt to what they've done. So that's going to take us some time, which is why we're saying if people want to try it, accepting this as a limitation, but you can still try it and get a feel for whether it's useful without that. And by the April, we're hoping to have adapted to that change, and then we've got the kind of solution that we originally envisaged. Do talk to the development team in more detail if there's specific questions around that. I think Alistair has also been involved and probably understands this better than I do. But it's kind of where we're at. So functionality wise, we've got close to where we were aiming for, but this is an obstacle in our way to getting it fully available. Yeah.
We invited Tim here, not last meeting, but I think the meeting before,
Yeah.
in bid to kind of get them a bit more engaged with us and with you guys as our supplier. How does that work? Was this just about the brief review, or did you know?
I think it was. As I say, I wasn't heavily involved in the project. I need Richard Havinger really to know the ins and outs of it, but I think it did come as somewhat of a surprise, and they did something in a way that we weren't really expecting. We do have a reasonably good relationship with them, and we'll obviously work with them to try and resolve it. But they are going down on their path to meet their needs, and we're in this community that we're all in of third-party plugins and trying to get them all to work together. I think this is the kind of obstacle we're going to have to get used to dealing with. We're all relying on what Moodle does, what Turnitin does, what we do, what anyone else does, and trying to put it all together is quite a challenge. But yeah, I don't think there's any major problem with the relationship with Turnitin, but it probably doesn't suggest there's more we could do, because this did kind of hit us. But yeah, please do go and see the team if it's something that might be interest, and it's something that we want you guys to have access to and be able to use. We do think it's the kind of thing we should be investing in, building up the product and the features so that Moodle and Bloom is a more attractive proposition for all of you. The next update is Thrive. We did this at length last time, so I don't want to overdo it, but we've now built what we set out to build with the product. So for those of you who weren't here, this is an analytics service that we've developed whereby by feeding data to us in conjunction with a Moodle block that captures sort of daily sentiment of how users are feeling, crunches those together and produces you a daily list of students most at risk of dropping out. The names that, if you're going to see if you can help students, these are the names that we suggest you start with to get the most benefit. So that's actually it's not aiming as high as some analytics things are doing, but it's a fairly simple, here's a bunch of data. There's nothing too surprising in there about the kind of things that would indicate someone's at risk of dropping out. You can probably guess what a lot of them are. But in conjunction with the Moodle sentiment interaction, it's quite powerful. Our international programs based here are now using it. They have 50,000+ distance learning students, which obviously creates its own extra risks of dropping out because you've got literally that distance between you and the students. We are keen for more early adopters, and I don't know exactly what the details would be, but we'd be quite keen to make it worth your while. We're confident in it. We've delivered what we set out to do. The early test results and so on give us a lot of confidence, but we'd be keen to get real life feedback of this actually makes a difference or it doesn't. So if you are interested, do talk to us, and probably a deal could be struck, I'm sure. Just a few screenshots. So on the left, you've got what's been called the Pulse block, which is a very simple presented to students at wherever in the Moodle site you choose. It's basically how do you feel. It sounds ridiculously simplistic, and I was very skeptical to start with, but actually the evidence really does back up that it provides a really crucial piece of information. And people do actually fill that in when they're happy. We assumed it would just be only if they were unhappy would they bother to fill that in, but actually it could be quite encouraging to see people feeling positive. And there's the option to leave a text message which can be analysed to some extent and fed into the results. And this is the kind of example report that you would get at the moment. So that's each day you would get a list of names, and it takes into account time. So it's not just a list of names based on what happened yesterday. It factors in changes in that student's behaviour or the overall period. So that's the kind of thing you might see. Again, this is a report on the happiness kind of feedback that you're getting, and you can track that over time. So depending how sophisticated your usage of this is, you could review after introducing significant changes and actually just see does that change the kind of response I'm getting from people. Okay, any questions on that? So I'm willing to talk more if people are interested. Out of hours. So this is something we've been doing for a long time, having a team of 19, including myself, Emily, and various others that you'll know, on a regular rota, ready to be phoned and got out of bed at weekends or overnight to deal with outages of your services. We currently do this for 6 customers, so it's not a huge number. And because of, I think, where we were in 2012 when we started, is defined very much as what we call a reactive service. So it relies on you guys knowing that a system is down, contacting the out of hours number, and gradually ripples through, and one of us will get called and got out of bed to sort it out. We're now 4 years on from that. There are problems with that. It delays the resolution of your incident. That long-winded process of you being notified, you finding the number, you calling us, then filtering the call, then calling the relevant person here, and eventually a technical person gets on the case. So it generally does work, but it's slower than we feel it really could be. And because of the requirement it places on you to have an on-call team ready to be notified and call us, for us it limits the adoption of the service. That there aren't that many of our customers who have that mechanism in place. We've talked about this a lot recently internally. We are keen to make our service proactive going forward. So for our existing customers, we want to go through a process of tweaking it slightly so that actually you are not required to phone us to get us to react to a service going down. We've got various things to do to make that possible. We've got to work through staff terms and conditions, because obviously we have to go through a fairly lengthy process to get staff on board with the notion of being able to be called out for customers out of hours. So we're going to have to look at that again. Have to work with you guys to make sure you've still got the ability to phone us if you really do need to. So over the coming months, hopefully we'll talk to you guys about how we can improve that. The main focus is that we think we can resolve, when out of hours incidents do happen, we think we can actually resolve it quicker by making it proactive. It's true these days that the monitoring and alerting is so much better than it was 4 years ago, that just because I like to know, I've got all the alerts set up to me 24/7. So I tend to actually know these days that we're about to get an out of hours call, because I've seen the system say something's gone down. So that for me tells me that the system is sort of too slow, too cumbersome to react. If we know already, and we have to just wait for the call to come in before we get people out of bed. We need to do something about that to improve it. The obvious benefit for us is if you don't need to have an on-call team to detect something's down to call us, it opens up the door to more of you that don't have that mechanism in place, that if something like this is seen as valuable for you, that you're able to do it. We're not saying, well, you've got to have an on-call team of 6 people, etc., etc., etc. So what we want to do is convert the existing services to be proactive, and then develop variants upon that. So the service instead of saying, if you phone this number, we'll do this within this amount of time, it's saying, we will make the guarantee of 99.9% availability 24/7, 365. At the moment, as standard, we aim for that, but our commitment and our guarantee is working hours. So by and large, we meet that anyway, but it's having that, I guess, that assurance that if something did take place out of hours, that we would do something about it to ensure that that figure remained true. So it still would rely on the on-call team, the rotors, all of the kind of stuff that Emily and I are familiar with. But we're sort of thinking about 3 different levels of out-of-hours service. One where not only do you not need to call us, but that you effectively can't. You can measure us on whether we're meeting that target, but we will use our monitoring and alerting to detect that something's happened, and we will get people or systems out to resolve it as quickly as possible, and then we review that to see whether it's taking place. Obviously, we can do adding the ability for you to trigger us if, for some reason, and I don't think it actually happens very often, but it's about the confidence level that you need. You know, if for some reason we did miss something, or there was something that affected your service in a way that wasn't picked up by the monitoring, do you want to be able to trigger us into action? The middle one would be going via the portal. We have a non-Moodle customer who has the ability to do something like this, where they log via the portal a P1 incident out of hours. It will trigger the same, you know, people will get calls and things will happen. And the third one would be actually having a phone number where you can guarantee to speak to somebody out of hours. So that's kind of what we're thinking at the moment. We want to move into the realms of it being proactive rather than reactive. We'd love feedback on, does that work for people? Does that make it more interesting than it would have otherwise been? Our assumption is that the first of those options, or the first two of those options, we ought to be able to offer cheaper than we currently offer the full-blown phone number kind of service. So keen to get feedback. If it's not of interest to people, if it, you know, out of hours isn't exciting or useful or valued, then that's also useful. But we are keen to improve the way we do it. Yeah, so I said, we want feedback. Talk to Toby and myself if you want to see draft SLAs about how it might work in practice. We can share those drafts. We can demonstrate the, ran out of time, I was hoping to demonstrate the monitoring and alerting in this presentation, take a demo site down and show you that, you know, within minutes I'm getting a phone call on the mobile phone. But we could do that offline, or we could do that at a future user group if it's something that people want to build that confidence in the monitoring that we now have. That's it. I think I'm about yeah. Okay.
In the next session, there'll be space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got a remote question.
All right.
Will availability guarantee reflect periods where the system is not slow?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So the question was, would availability periods reflect times when system is up but performing incredibly slowly? Yes. So our basic Bloom service includes something that our previous Moodle service definitions didn't have, which is a performance commitment. It's relatively crude, relatively simple, but it's a baseline for us. So it says that, because we monitor the sites every minute, we have an external system that connects to the service, checks that it gets a response that implies the site's up, but it also measures how long it takes for the root page to load. And we say that if that takes longer than 5 seconds for 5 consecutive minutes or longer, that's our performance commitment, but we treat that as if it's an outage. So if it's slower than that for 5 minutes, it's down as far as our monitoring is concerned. We've sort of been measuring that for about 6 months. We're reviewing whether that's the right level to measure, whether that's actually too strict or not strict enough. So we're looking at that. But yes, we want to treat poor performance as seriously as an outage. So that measurement does cover the scenarios where a site goes extremely slow for some reason. We've got an optional service called Enhanced Performance Monitoring, which relies on some tools that are relatively expensive for us to install, but that monitors every single interaction with the site. It's not simulated interaction, it's the real interaction of your users. Crunches that into one overall metric called AppDex, which is a much more sophisticated measure of overall site performance. So we have a service where if you want to, you can have access to the data that system tells you about your usage and performance, but we also make the commitment that we will guarantee that measurement will be above a certain level going forward. So yes, the basic service will treat poor performance as an outage, but there's an ability to go even further if you want to across the board to know that everything is actually likely to perform. Because Moodle, as you know, it's not just a simple transactional system where every interaction is very much the same and performance measurement is easy. There's so many different things going on. Some things take a lot longer than others. You can have multiple portions of different activities going on. So that's why we've got a range of options as to how important it is to people. Hopefully that answers the question. There's a blog post as well, I think, about the combining of performance with availability. So we can dig out the link and send that around if we need to. It's probably about a year old, I think. I could do, yeah. Yeah, not a bad idea. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and the last thing was, so for the topic later, we've been doing this user group for quite a long time now. It's evolved from, I think, where we were 3 years ago, whenever we started. We thought it was a good point to ask you guys, what should we do with it going forward? We're quite happy to carry on if this works for everybody. But if it doesn't, we're happy to evolve it into something different. Okay, I'm open for any more questions or comments on any of that and anything I haven't covered as well. Yeah.
Would it be possible, I'm not sure if this is part of the service desk thing, but would it be possible to get some sort of help database going, which I think would save time, some help sheets, especially on things like dealing with LDAP or course management scenes? Because for me, the rollover always goes wrong.
Yeah.
Because you're always in a three-cornered relationship with either me and you with IT support or MIS, and I don't know exactly how it works and what I'm supposed to tell them to do. And you can never get the other two sides which talk to each other, or if they do, then we know. And so a bit more technical knowledge of exactly the stuff we're doing. And with us and now again on the blog to keep like up.
Yeah.
It'd be really useful to have some of the basics covered, but some people have little expertise.
Yes. That's one of the things on our list of what do we do next with the service platform. So I think Emily's idea of presenting to you the options for what we do next and seeing what the overall view is on where priorities. But yeah, I think it's something we want to do. It's really a case of when and are there other things that we really ought to do first. But yes, I mean, because obviously for us, the more complicated and messy those things get, the more of our time it takes up. So we want them to be slick, straightforward, and easy, just as much as you do. So yes, I think so.
Will we have to upgrade to
Okay, so the question was, will we have to upgrade to Moodle 3? Our preference is, our dream would be that everybody is always on the exact same version, and it's the up-to-date one that we've just produced, because it's fairly obvious why we're not having to deal with old bugs, issues. We can have the help guides that kind of Jane is referring to will all be the same. We don't have to produce variants of them for people on different systems. But I think we accept reality that there are sometimes cases for not keeping up. But I think it's probably fair to say our preference would be that yes, you do. Okay. I mean, timing is obviously, again, our dream would be that it all happens on the same day and it's no impact, but we do still have this fairly long window over the summer. So there's potentially flexibility on the timing of, so we're saying we're going to start 1st of April. We almost certainly won't finish until, you know, towards the end of the summer. So by all means, talk to the support team about how timing might work. And if it really can't be made to work, then talk to us about practicalities of delaying. But we really would like to find a way that we can make it a straightforward transition for you. But the changes, I think it's fair to say, Emily, they're not hugely significant. They shouldn't make anybody's head explode. Yeah.
So thank you very much, David.
Hey, fantastic. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along. My name's Dave Matthews, and I'm VLE Development Manager at Rose Bruford College of Theatre and Performance. I'm certain you've heard of us, but for those who have not, for any reason, we're a small, very small, specialist higher education institution based just outside London in Sidcup. I learned from the first presentation this morning that ULCC supports 3,222,619 users. Yeah? We're the 619. We're very small. We're slightly bigger than that. We have 800 full-time equivalent students and a small permanent staff body, a very large body of visiting tutors, industry professionals, and so on. But within that small body of staff and students, we're a broad church. Some of our programs are very, very practical indeed. They're very craft-based, and we're on a conservatoire model. So our students might be spending upwards of 35 hours per week, contact hours, in college. So we're teaching on the same sort of model as RADA or Welsh College, places like that. And the programs might be very craft-based. So you know, costume production program, for instance, you know, that is making, that is, you know, the laying on of hands. That's how that program is taught. But within our suite of programs, we also have 2 pure online distance learning courses. We have a postgraduate certificate, which is blended, so students are attending the college you know, once or twice a month, but otherwise it's all delivered online. So the place of technology is very, very different, even within, you know, very small institutions such as ourselves. And while some of our programs, like the online distance learning programs, are completely reliant on learning technologies of different kinds for their delivery, for other programs, the role of technology is very much more to do with, you know, support and easing the admin burden and so on. So we're trying to deal with quite a, you know, diverse range of users and a very wide variety of, you know, their requirements, even within this relatively small group. Now, our relationship with ULCC is long-standing, and we're very happy to sign another contract last summer and move up to a tailored package, which is already bearing fruit for us. But what I've been invited to talk to you about today is our single sign-on project, which was completed approximately 2 months ago. Now, I know that single sign-on between services might be very old hat for a lot of people in this room, but it was a really, really big deal for us, and something that we're very proud of, and something that obviously I'm delighted to be able to talk to you about. So, ULCC host Moodle and Mahara for us. We also use Adobe Connect, we use Turnitin, all of the sort of platforms you would expect us to be using, and all the more so with our online distance learners. So 2 programs there in theatre studies and in opera studies. And what we're seeking to do with those programs is find a sort of formal equivalence between what would be happening in rehearsal rooms and in theatres on campus, and what we can do out there in the world. So where 5 years ago those programs were literally being sent out through the post, very flat, very old-fashioned, read and response distance learning, we're trying to put more and more practical teaching and learning into those programs. And part of doing that is just improving and supporting all of the infrastructure that surrounds them. So we were keen to establish single sign-on between Moodle and other college services. And that was in response to a more mature and more widespread use of Moodle by college programs. Every one of our college programs has a presence on Moodle, regardless of what they're using it for. And they adhere to certain minimum standards. Some programs then take that on the fly, and it becomes absolutely crucial to the way that teaching and learning is delivered. Others are using it much more in a sort of support sense, but all of our programs are at least on board with that. We wanted to address password fatigue, inevitably. That's bad enough for students who are on campus every day of the week, having to use different login details to get into different services. Okay, so it's something we've been trying to improve for a number of years. So for instance, moving over to Shibboleth for our Athens authentication. This was the next stage in that process. But within those groups that I just described to you, our distance learners might never visit the campus. We've got students who are all around the world. We might never meet them in the flesh. And making the experience as seamless, as user-friendly for them at a distance is very, very important. But further to that, we have programs that rely very heavily on industry placements, for example. We expect our students to be out there working in theatre and performance type industries, often long before they graduate. And that's especially true for our students on more technical programs in our School of Design, Management and Technical Arts. If you're a lighting designer, you need to go to the coalface. You need to go and work on shows and gain that kind of practical first-hand experience. There's only so much you can learn in a studio. So for those students who are out on placements, again, they might not be in that often. They might be working late at night. They might be working out of hours, for example. That's not the point. We want to have a failed login. We have programs where Erasmus plays a very important role. It's a European Theatre Arts program, an American Theatre Arts program where students spend extended periods of time in the States. So again, it's supporting users who can't just rock up at a help desk and get that kind of assistance, and making sure that we can support them at all times. We're going through a process of applying for taught degree awarding powers at the moment. And we're in the scrutiny phase. So our degrees are currently validated by University of Manchester, but we hope by this time next year to be awarding our own. But this was precisely the kind of project that we could present as an enhancement as well for one of our service departments, which is me, as part of that TDEP application. The main reasons we didn't do this in the past is it's partly related to our size. We simply didn't have the skills on staff. Our IT department is 1.5 people, and our VLE department is me, and I'm only half a man. So I'm 0.5 on the VLE side of my deployment. I'm also a lecturer in theatre studies at college. So you've got incredibly small teams, incredibly small service departments. We just didn't know how to do it. And we also had a preferred solution that we wanted to go with. But this summer, the timing was right. We have been trying to do this for years. We've made a couple of false attempts and false approaches, but as I say, the stars were in alignment this year. So this is how we did it. When we're in the process of renewing our hosting contract from Moodle and Mahara for another year, I had a number of discussions with Toby about these projects that have been kicking around for a while, and we've never managed to quite get over the hump. And single sign-on was one of them. So in the first instance, that was just Toby and I having a discussion about what might be possible, what potential solutions there might be, whether this was feasible, what the timescales were, and so on and so forth. The second phase was devising a solution, and I'm enormously grateful to colleagues at ULCC for the work that they put in here. Toby I've met a few times. Matt Hull did an immense amount of work on the day in the run-up to this. I'd never met Matt in the flesh before today, and I've just given him a big cuddle. If Hans Littek is in the room, he's going to get the same. we honestly, we could not have done this without you. And there was the expertise that we did not have really started to come in that devising a solution phase, which was for my IT manager and for Hans to have those discussions and see if what we wanted to happen was something that Ulcc could satisfy, obviously. And our solution was to use Shibboleth to point at users' UPNs in Active Directory. That's enough technical jargon in one sentence. And then finally, the third phase was actually delivering this on the day. So once we found a solution that was going to work for us and tested it, it was a case of planning for what would happen on that day, letting staff and student users know that there'd probably be a brief outage, and obviously correcting any issues as they arose. And that was Matt and I sitting at terminals and on the phone and working through that during the day. So, what went well? The project as a whole sort of lifts the rock for us on how we've been doing account creation, how we've administered Active Directory over the years, and we found all the stuff that was crawling underneath. So, for instance, our student users, this transition was really very, very seamless because their UPNs already married up with their Moodle usernames. That's just a decision that we happened to take. So that sort of flick of a switch and everything worked immediately. Slightly different from staff, but I'll sort of describe that in a second. Matt, very kindly, and Hans, found a solution for reattaching Moodle and Mahara accounts post-integration. So we already had a single sign-on set up between Moodle and Mahara, orchestrated by Ulcc. That broke the second that we moved over to Shibboleth authentication for Moodle, so to put that back into place again. That third one, I want to slightly unpick that a little bit. 800 student users plus 150 permanent and part-time staff is still quite a lot of accounts. And I came into work on that Monday fully prepared to manually change these bloody things one by one. I'm enormously grateful to Matt for devising a means of writing queries, putting queries to our Moodle database that allowed us to move bulks of those users around quite easily and get that right through the course of the morning. And as you can probably tell by now, we're hugely grateful for an efficient and industrious and responsive service from Ulcc. Really felt like you were giving us your full attention all the way through that project, and it means a lot to the little people. So thank you very much. In terms of what perhaps did not go so well, our staff UPNs, for whatever reason, and it's historical, did not marry up with pretty much any other piece of information held about them anywhere else. A completely orphaned bit of information. So it took several attempts to try and catch our staff users in those queries. And in one query, we turned 300 of our students into staff, which is probably a bit of a healthier ratio, isn't it? Of 500 staff to 300 students. But luckily, that was spotted very, very quickly and then fixed. And sort of by process of elimination, working through those queries, we managed to get all of our users set up and good to go. We did need to make a series of manual repairs to Mahara accounts to attach them back up to Moodle accounts and make sure that those programs who were really making full use of their e-portfolios, students especially, weren't becoming detached from work that they'd had in the past. And again, I think the guys basically figured that out on the fly and were able to apply that fix as we were working through this. It's made us think sort of a bit further into the future about how we'll do account creation and how we'll manage this kind of information, because our programs don't all run concurrently, depending on learning hours and all sorts of other demands, whether it's Erasmus visits and so on. Students are coming to the college at different times, enrolling at different times, and that would be giving us a bit of a problem in many ways had this not happened. So again, another benefit of this project that lifted the rock, as I said before, is it's made us think more in a more sophisticated way about some of these admin type processes and these registry type processes that have just been done practically and ad hoc in the past, and how those can actually be facilitated and normalized through the use of technology. So for the future, again, we've off the back of this, and in recent weeks, we've started to think a lot more about who our constituencies are really, and how we how we support them best. Because one of the dangers of being very small is that we end up reinventing the wheel every year in a way. Because most problems are easy to fix. You can get access to the person you need to speak to, the person who can fix it. It just gets fixed, and next year it breaks again, and then you fix it again, and then you break it again, you fix it again, and so on. So starting to put better systems in place to support those people who are, for instance, not staff and not student users. So our external examiners, our TDAP scrutineers, any individuals who kind of fall through the net, I suppose. We have huge numbers of visiting tutors and industry professionals. It's how we cater to them so that everybody is always able to use the systems that we provide to their fullest and at the same time. And what we'd also like to do in the future is look towards some degree of MIS integration. Again, these are still at the moment a lot of the capturing of student data and a lot of the tracking of marks is being done manually, and it's being done manually by small teams, and that has its challenges to resilience, if nothing else. So, having enjoyed this level of success with one integrations project, we'd like now to take this a bit further and see what else could be accomplished to take some of the weight off already overstretched teams. That more or less brings me to the end. Again, just to extend my sincere thanks, and I speak for my college and my management as well to our colleagues here at ULCC. We kind of never thought we'd get this done. And again, while it might sound relatively modest to some of those in the room, especially some bigger institutions, it meant a hell of a lot to us. So sincerely, thank you very, very much.
Been there and done that some time ago, but maybe the process and working with thoughts or no. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
But I think they might want to cover as well. So.
Former Q.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So the final session before we break for lunch is the open forum. So what we want to do is move you guys around a bit, so get thinking. We picked three key topics, but there might be others that you'd like to talk to your colleagues about where you're sat. So, but I think if we have, is COSector going to be back mid-screen? Okay, so my colleagues are standing over this way, it's only by the screen. If you want to know more about the coursework, it used to be called OCM, online coursework management tool, but as there's very much involved with things in MMU, they go over to that corner. If you would like to talk to myself and Frank about the future of this user group, because as they said, we've been meeting 3 times a year for about 3 years. And the reason I put this group together is because I kept hearing a lot of whinging and moaning in ULCC 3-4 years ago. So I said, we need to have a user group, they need to hear this, we need to think back. So this is why we've been doing this. But, is this something that you want to continue doing 3 times a year, or is it an annual event with webinars? So Dave could have done that presentation remotely, we didn't even come. We want some feedback. So we'll talk to you guys again today
Okay,